I'm so happy to be here. It blows my mind to be here in California and with the rest of you there in Cape Town, South Africa, in the birthplace of humanity, Mother Africa, and in a part of it in which it's true, actually, around 150,000 years ago, the climate naturally changed and most of our ancestors died out. The human species was very, very close to going extinct, except that there are these small pockets of refuge in South Africa, many of them close to where you are now sitting there today in the in person portion of this festival, where human beings live together and were able to survive for thousands of years in these small pockets on the edge of the sea, protected by the land, cradled by it, living with each other just like we live with each other today, having their babies, loving each other, looking for food, eventually passing away. And then as climate gradually changed after several thousand more years, humans spread back out into Africa and then spread throughout the world today. So it just makes me uh, really quite startled by the possibilities here and appreciative of all the technology that enables it. So here I am in California. It's almost 2 o'clock in the morning for me. I got a little sleep and then I woke up and my friend, my coffee is keeping me going. So if I babble a little bit, I hope you will forgive me. That was a very generous introduction by both Dr. Mampela Rampelli, who's becoming a dear friend of mine, has become a friend of mine, and really a soulmate in the creation of this Global Compassion Coalition. Um, and then also the mother of conversations here, who has introduced me as well. So thank you both for that. Um, what I would like to first begin with is some expression of gratitude. I am the founder and the president of the Global Compassion Coalition, which is sponsoring this festival. And on behalf of the GCC, I would like to begin by thanking you, really, thanking you for coming to this festival, whether in person or online. It is not always easy to see, including when we hear the drums of war and when we read the headlines in the newspaper. It is not always easy to see, but it is actually true that the world is founded on, it rests on countless daily acts of generosity. Most of them are small and informal. You know, the gifts of attention, of letting others finish their sentence before you interrupt them, the gifts of a helping hand, a kind word, a loving glance, the gifts of personal practice, making efforts inside your own mind to be mindful and open hearted, to learn and to grow. Your own gifts, your own efforts have brought you here today. Think of the many little things you did or the person you were a minute ago or a day ago or a year ago that brought you here today. And I want to thank you, truly, for your own gifts of generosity, including your gifts of attention and politeness, and reasonable friendliness with me here right now. I'd also like to thank the very generous and skillful efforts of the team that brought this festival into being. And I want to name them in alphabetical order. Rachel Ebanks Gold, Michael Gaynor, Aidan Heim, Olfa Ismail, the mother of festivals, Michelle Keene, Megan McElrath, Alma Viviers, Stephanie Valen, and of course, Fadia Williams, the hardworking, endlessly patient, endlessly creative solver of problems as the curator of this festival. And of course, we very much appreciate our world-class tech crew led by Kurt Johnson. Speaking of generosity, I would also like to thank the financial donors. You know, it takes money to keep the lights on, to fly people across the world sometimes. And I'd like to thank the financial donors who have helped to cover the costs of this festival, most of the costs of the festival, as well as thank the many sponsors and other contributors that are listed in your program. And I'd like to thank people who previously worked with the GCC on this festival, including Meg Folks, Matt Hawkins, Caleb Isaacs, and Alex Wilkes. In particular, I would like to acknowledge Dr. Mampela Rampelli. Without her unflagging support and deep roots in South Africa, we would not be here today. And opening our awareness even wider, we can also thank the many other beings who have brought this moment to life, including the ancestors who walked this land, walked the land we are meeting on, and walked the lands throughout this earth for countless generations. A teacher for me and many others was Mr. Frank Rogers, who had a television show for children that reached and touched millions of families. Late in his life, he pointed out that each one of us has been loved into being. So let's take a quiet moment to give thanks to one or more of those people who have loved you into being yourself. As Mr. Rogers said on television famously, let's have 10 seconds here, and don't worry, I'll keep track of the time. So how about 10 seconds of bringing to mind one or more people who have loved you into being in one way or another so that you are here today? Thank you. And now I'd like to say a bit about the GCC and the purposes of this festival. The Global Compassion Coalition is founded on a simple, obvious, painful truth. The world today is a mess, benefiting the few at the cost of the many. It's obvious. Look around. We can see it. We see the effects of poverty and war, corruption and dictatorships, prejudice and injustice, and the sad legacies of colonialism and collective trauma. Many people take all this for granted. It's like the water they swim in. They shrug and they think it's normal. Normal for 10,000 children a day to die of starvation. Normal that our world spends $3 trillion a year on military spending instead of on schools and hospitals and communities and helping people get a fresh start. We think it's somehow normal that 1 billion people go to bed hungry every night. Well, we're here to tell you, all of us, that this is not normal. What many take for granted is completely unnatural. It's an amazing fact that for hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors lived in their bands on the basis of what scientists call caring and sharing. They cared for each other with compassion, and they shared their food and their fates with justice. In those bands, their lives were bound together. So, of course, naturally, normally, the strong protected the weak. Big decisions were made collectively, and the many regulated the few for the sake of all. Look around this room. I'm holding you right now in my own imagination. Look around this room. The 100+ people in this room would be a large band. Imagine living together your whole life, getting to know each other well, liking some a lot, liking some others maybe not so much, but still living together and finding your own ways to do so. Working and laughing and crying and living and dying together. Imagine knowing that each person in your band, perhaps imagine each person in this room, knowing that they would have compassion for you if you were hurting. Compassion is simply empathy for suffering combined with caring and the motivation to help if you can. Empathy is not agreement or approval. Empathy does not mean giving up your own rights, you can have, pardon me, compassion does not mean giving up your own rights. And it's very interesting, as you'll learn later in this festival, including from Dr. Nikki Petrosci, that in the brain, when we are being compassionate, different neurochemicals are released that have to do with the caringness and compassion that protect us from empathic burnout and being overwhelmed by the suffering of others or even our own. Compassion is sort of bittersweet. It's empathy for suffering combined with the sweet of caring. And it's really important to tune into the suffering in yourself and others, while at the same time bringing your attention back to the caringness, the lovingness, the respect, the interest in justice and fairness for others and for yourself. That's the sweet. That's the sweet of compassion that helps us to tolerate and endure the bitter of it. So that's compassion. Imagine knowing that others in your band or others in your room would have compassion for you. They may not agree with you. They may, still be pursuing their own goals, but they would care about your pain. They would also be truthful with you. They would treat you fairly. Imagine that. Does this sound far-fetched? Like some kind of silly dream? Oh, I'm from California. That's what hippies think. No, it is a fact. It's a scientific, biological fact that this is our deep nature, including the deep nature of our own nervous system, headquartered in our own brain. During the last several million years, as the brain tripled in size, our hominid and human ancestors evolved a unique way of living together in their small bands, unlike any other of the several hundred other primate species. Individuals and bands that were particularly caring and particularly helpful with each other, they were more likely to survive in Stone Age conditions, tough conditions. They were more likely to survive because they helped each other. They learned how to listen to each other. They learned how to really take good care of their children. They learned how to create the village it takes to raise a child. And those bands and those individuals who shared genes with others in their band were more likely to survive and pass on their genes. Generation after generation, therefore, the biological blueprints of empathy, cooperation, compassion, kindness, altruism, and love were gradually woven into the DNA we carry today. That's what's natural. Look, and you can see the results inside you. Look inside, and you will find your own natural goodness, your own naturally good heart. Just take a moment now, quietly. This is you. Yeah, we're not always perfect. I'm certainly not. No halo required. And still, deep down, underneath everything we do are fundamentally good intentions, even if they're sometimes expressed not so well, at least speaking for myself, as my wife will remind me from time to time. That's, again, who we are. You will find your own natural goodness, your own natural good heart, if you look inside. This is you. This is who you and the others around you are naturally. That's who you are. When you're not stressed and pressed, when you're not running for your life, when you're not overwhelmed by loss and pain. Look around this room and see this truth in the faces of others, their own natural goodness, their own longing for kindness and respect, for the simple opportunity to fulfill their talents and contribute to others. This is who we really are. This is what is truly normal. What is not normal are the extreme concentrations of wealth and power, and then more wealth and power that have developed over the last several thousand years and still rule the world today. For example, 8 men, and they're all men, 8, just 8 men, hold as much wealth as 4 billion people, half the world's population. has as much wealth together as 8 very rich men. Also, $1 trillion a year are spent on bribes to corrupt officials. And just 6% of the world's population lives in a high-functioning democracy, and that does not include my own country, America. How did this happen? What are the systems? What are the causes and conditions? What are the forces that perpetuate so much unnecessary suffering? Why? I've spent most of my career as a therapist, a writer, and a teacher. I'm working mainly in my career in the past at the individual level. It's important work, absolutely important. And it's done by educators, healthcare professionals, clinicians, and in many other occupations. This work at the individual level is also done without pay by the people, mainly women, who are raising families and weaving together communities. It's vital and important work. But lifting individual consciousness is not enough. I have many friends who focus a lot on that level, and some of them are somehow convinced that if we all just meditate enough and be mindful enough and raise our chakras enough, that somehow that will transform the planet. No, it never has and it never will. Raising individual consciousness must also be accompanied by collective action at the systemic level if we are really to create lasting changes for the better in this world. After many years of doing this work at the individual level, it increasingly has felt to me, late in my career and in my life, like helping one person after another to come out of the river of suffering. Really good work, really important work, one person after another coming out of the river of suffering. And yet, increasingly, along with many others these days, I'm starting to ask, what are the forces upstream that are pushing so many people into that river of suffering? What are the economic forces, the political forces, the long shadow of the past, the systems that rule our lives? It's not a mystery. It's not a great mystery at all. There are already many very credible analyses of why things are the way they are and how to fix them, and inspiring calls to action. We have them already. Many great people have already done that work. For example, we just heard from Dr. Mampela Rampelli, an historic figure and a recent co-president of the Club of Rome, which has, the Club of Rome, published many scholarly diagnoses of our problems and laid out effective policies and plans to solve them. In this festival, you will hear other brilliant voices with very credible solutions to various systemic sources of suffering. And we can find comfort and hope in the good work already done by them and many others. And now, at this perilous tipping point in human history, on the edge of a sword, and it could go either way, we need to come together and, as our ancestors did, and take action. Take action on the basis of these good, well-considered plans. Take action and act collectively for the common good. All too often, pro-social organizations do beautiful work in their own particular circle, but they're territorial. They hold on to what they have, and they do not work collectively with other organizations with which they have shared values and interests. And they don't pool their resources at a scale in a kind of a single bucket. They don't combine their forces at a scale that can actually change systemic sources of suffering. Instead, we must do as our ancestors did and form new groups, new networks, new alliances, new coalitions and coalitions of coalitions that are big enough to be strong enough to overcome concentrated wealth and power. That's the simple, fundamental need on the table in the world today, forming new collectives, new alliances and coalitions that are big enough to be strong enough to make the world we long for. This is the animating vision of the Global Compassion Coalition, to foster a new kind of global commons in which humanity as a whole, all 8 billion of us, can come together as our ancestors did, as one whole human tribe, grounded in caring and sharing, compassion and justice. Pause for a moment, please, and consider this as a realistic development. Not airy-fairy, not a pipe dream. It's a realistic development because it is about returning to our actual biological nature. As the beautiful poet said, who opened this whole festival, it is about coming home to the heart, coming home to trusting ourselves, coming home to justice and fairness, home to cooperation and kindness with others, and home, sweet home, to living in sustainable harmony with nature on this, our one beautiful blue-green planet in the vastness of the universe. This is our home. And consider this as well, and consider this coming together at a scale that's big enough to make a difference collectively, not just as a realistic development, but as a necessary one, as humanity hurtles toward climate catastrophe and hurtles toward new wars with even more frightening weapons. We live in a time of great peril and also a time of great promise. There are many opportunities for people and organizations to come together and act collectively to change systemic sources of suffering at all kinds of scales, from classrooms and neighborhoods to small and large businesses to cities and countries and regions. It's time to get to work together. Every day counts. If there is a next step to take it and see what new steps open up before you. Most of us have much more power than we realize. We just have to use it, and we have even more power together. So I invite you to use this festival to explore your own deep nature as someone who is committed to compassion, committed to reducing suffering, including your own, and thus committed to reducing the causes of suffering, including at the systemic level. I invite you also to use your time here to explore new collaborations with others, new ways of joining forces, new ways to be big enough, to be strong enough to produce real changes for the better. And I invite you to enjoy being gathered together here as our wise and courageous ancestors did, to take heart in each other and to laugh and to cry and to give our hearts to each other for the sake of all life today and for the sake of all living for countless generations to come. Thank you. Truly from my heart, thank you. I am so touched that we are together ourselves as one big band for the sake of compassion and justice for all.